Alright, hi guys. Back again with the second or part two of Plastic to Wood, and this time what we're going to do is take the piece that we did originally, and we're going to add some more paint and dry brushing techniques to kind of give it a weather beaten silvery gray appearance that still allows some of that brown that we put on initially to show through. I did the base for the rest of the depot, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. This will be the interior floor, and then these are the exteriors. You can see some of the brown of the wood around the edges on the outside. That would be covered by the roof, and as it goes further towards the outside, it gets a lot darker grays. You also have a little bit more where the doors are, I believe. So let's go ahead and get started on that next part. Basically, at this point, I'm going to use two colors. This is a medium gray, and this is a light gray. It's called Dove Gray. So this one says medium. This is Dove Gray. And again, these are inexpensive craft paints that I get them at Michael's. They go on sale all the time, and even when they're not on sale, Michael's has coupons weekly where you can get 40% off on an item, so you can get some stuff pretty cheap. One of the other things I like to use those 40 off coupons for is they sell Testors dull coat, and I'll buy my dull coat from them. I've also done some experimenting with some other fixatives and dull coats or flat finishes with some success. We'll get maybe into that in future videos. So without any ado, I got my brush, got my little piece of paper towel, and we're ready to go. So to begin with, I'll start with the darker gray. These are you're really just putting very small amounts of paint onto the wood, onto the deck. Get most of that wiped off here, and just start adding it. Again, you want to follow in the direction of the grain of the wood. Always do it in the direction of the grain. And it is multiple coats. It's not, I hate to say I want to get more paint on the brush, but as you work the paint, it gets to a point in the brush where it just flows better onto the piece. And you can see how the gray's starting to add in on the decking. Not used to talking so much while I'm working. These are, that was one of the other things I was thinking about in the interim. Oh yeah, and the other, gosh, I'm going all over the place. This is how I normally talk. I go all over the place. You never know where I'm going to be in when I'm talking. I want to thank the people who subscribe to my YouTube channel. Holy crap, I never dreamed that I'd get that many. Hope you guys are enjoying it. The positive feedback is what keeps me going. I really enjoy doing this, and I think it's important to share techniques and skills with other people in the hobby. And I think it's important that these techniques are shown freely, that they're not in the public, that they are in the public domain, and not on some for-profit video that somebody's selling on eBay for 15 bucks or 20 bucks or whatever. I really like the idea of doing this on YouTube and letting everybody see. So anyways, kind of lost my train of thought on the other thing I was going at, but you can start to see some of the grays coming out, along with still showing off those browns very nicely. it doesn't take long. The first video, and this is real time for the most part. The first video I did, the one part was, showing the pieces and everything, how it got priming it, and then the second part was doing the technique, and essentially in less than 10 minutes you had this piece done. So it's not something that's very time consuming. It's not, what do I want to say? It's not real, it's not hard. Basically, it's not hard. It's a skill that's fairly easy to learn. Changing colors now to that lighter gray, as you can see. And this is where things are really going to start to pop, because right now you've got a lot of dark colors, and this, you want to go real easy on this, because this is going to be pretty dramatic in the difference on the appearance with these light colors. Never use white. Well, I shouldn't say never, because I do occasionally use white, but you always want to use some small amount of grays. White is just too stark. Got a little bit heavy there, but now you can start to see that gray that everybody's kind of familiar with. Again, we're going back to that trick of the eye, where you fill in the gaps of what you expect to see on things. So it doesn't have to be exact and perfect. If we give the illusion of it, the viewer's eyes will add in the parts that are not necessarily there, or not as detailed as you might like them to be. We're not talking about contest models here. These are just nice little models to add to your layout. Kind of fun projects. If I wasn't doing the videos, I was thinking about this earlier today too. If I wasn't doing this video, this depot would be done already. It's nothing fancy, nothing extraordinary. It's just pretty much building it right out of the box. And just get a nice little model to add to your layout. One of the things about some of these models is that sometimes you can do these as love my fingers for blending. I'll usually, when I'm done with models, a lot of times you'll see my fingers are just absolutely full of paint from doing that kind of stuff. But what I was getting at is these can be fill-in models for a spot on your layout. You have your dream depot, freight station, whatever that you want to build. You have to scratch build it, and you know that that's going to be an involved process. But you get something like this into the spot, get yourself all scenic around it, and then when that day comes that you actually do build that scratch built prototype depot, you pop this out and put that in. So, because we all know how long those projects can take. Sometimes it's years in the making to get those scratch built buildings. So, but this is a pretty nice little fill in for the time being. I've got a station, or not a station, I want to build a 2-stall wooden roundhouse for my yard area, and I wound up getting a Walthers 3-stall, and it's a brick one, and I want a wood one, but I wanted to get something in so I could get my yard area, my engine servicing facility, pretty well completed. And so I went and built that and modified it a little bit to fit the area, and I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. another piece. At some point here, I'll get you some video of my layout. It's definitely under construction. There's a couple areas that are pretty well completed, but there's a lot of it that's not. My layout is all hand laid track, scratch built turnouts using fast tracks, and it's been on national tours for NMRA. So it's the areas that are done I'm pretty happy with. So, but we'll get you some video of that so you can see what kind of stuff I got going on there. Another thing in the servicing facility is that the cooling tower. Of course, since I'm a steam bigot, you would expect me to be have steam on my layout, and of course that's exclusively steam. So the cooling tower that I put on it is one of the Bachmann inexpensive cooling towers, and I put that in as a temporary until I can build the I think I've got an Alexander Models wood cooling tower that's actually wood, and it's based on a Michigan prototype up in our Upper Peninsula, which I really like. My modeling area is in Michigan, so alright, so while I've been talking, I guess we're getting there on this. Sometimes you need to let it sit for a minute or two and kind of take a look at how it looks. I have another one here that I did on another model. I just popped it off, and you can see what we're looking at. That was one I had done for another. Actually, this is plastic, just same kind of deal. It's plastic painted to look like wood. So that was a loading dock. I think on this one I've still got a little bit to go. I think what I'm going to do is use a little bit of my alcohol and ink. And I got that here. This is my dark alcohol and ink. And on the first video I showed the light alcohol and ink, and that was I think I put in 15 to 20 drops of ink, and it's the Higgins black ink. I think this is the waterproof that I'm using here. But for the dark, I use about 30 drops in an ounce of alcohol, and I typically use the 90% isopropyl alcohol. So let's see what we can do with that. We'll get a little bit of that. I have 2 cats, so I have to deal with cat hair quite a bit. So let's see how this will come out. And again, the alcohol does soften the paints, so you get some additional blending. And looking at this, I can tell that I'm going to need to lighten it up a little bit, but that's not a big deal. Again, those layers were layer, right? And the layers are what gives you the appearance of real wood, because you get that variation in the coloration. And I'm going to flip it over so I could do the other end. Amateur video, right? Okay, Max is here again doing my camera work, and he'll do the editing on it. Alright, so that's there. But we are talking about a loading dock also, so you're gonna potentially have spills and scrapes and scratches. Let that dry a little bit. Alright, I'm gonna have Max shut down the camera just for a few minutes to let that alcohol dry on there, and then we'll come back and we're going to add just a little bit more of the either Dove Gray or a very, very light gray. I might take a little bit of white and mix it in with some of the medium gray or the Dove Gray just to give us another little lighter appearance. So let's give me about 5 minutes while that dries, and we'll come back and finish it up. Alright, so I'm back. It's still a little bit wet, but I wanted to show you guys a couple other things about details that I've painted. I hate painting details. It's tedious and takes time because you have to use a lot of different colors, and it's just not one of my real favorite things to do, but I do it because some of them really enhance the appearance of your models. So I wanted to show you a couple of things I've done. These are metal castings that I picked up. They came with different models, or I might have gotten them at shows as individual pieces. This is like a junk bin, and it's wood, a wooden junk bin, but you can see that we have, there's another one of those cat hairs, all these different little pieces and color variations inside. You got the wood siding, and it's 360 degrees, but you just adding, this one is all done with paint, but there's some powders too. I did use some rust powder in this one just to enhance a little bit the rust colors. I've used a few different kinds, and again, that's something we can get into in future models. I'm hoping that I can do videos on not just structures, but also doing rolling stock. I'd really like to do locomotives. That's one of the things that I haven't gotten into yet. This is another one that's it's not a pallet, but it's like a pallet, just a flat bin, and it's got all these little different barrels, and there's a toolbox on there and different odds and ends junks, and all gets painted by hand. This one is a pallet that has some barrels and crates on it, and I'm pretty happy about how the barrels came out. That's one of the things, one of the first videos I looked at was on weathering, and the guy was weathering a barrel, and I made a comment on it that his barrel did not look very realistic, and it took him a long time to do it. And these only take a couple minutes, and I think they look 100% better than what this guy had done. So we're going to have to, I've got some barrels here, and one of these days I'll get those primed up, and I'll show you how I do barrels. But essentially a barrel is done exactly the same way I do these wood decks. So it's really not a difference. The palette, and these are done with smaller brushes, obviously, and a couple of gas tanks here, and some kind of like an oil jar or something along those lines. So I've got that stuff too. Alright, let's see what we can do here. It's not 100% dry, but it's pretty darn close. Let's I think let me do this. I got titanium white, and we'll get it shook up a little bit. I'm sorry about that. I shook the other bottles before we started, but this one I didn't because I wasn't planning on using it. And I'll use my paper towel as a palette. Let's take a little bit of the white and a little bit of the gray, and I don't know if you can see that, but I'm just deadening that white just a little bit with the gray. I just want a little lighter gray, just and at this point we're really just kind of highlighting. I kind of feel like that that guy on PBS, Bob, what's his name? Bob something or other. And he makes the happy trees. Again, using the finger. Bob Rossi, that's the guy's name. And he did those Saturday morning PBS painting shows. Actually, the technique I use, I paint my own backdrops, and kind of use his technique for doing those as well. Although I have another friend who's an artist, he's a cartoonist actually, and I use kind of a modification of his technique along with Bob Rossi, so it's and they come out. I've gotten some compliments on that too. I'm pretty happy with how my backdrops come out. Now that's something that takes some time for sure. Get a little more going here. You almost can't make a mistake with this, and even if you feel like you made a mistake, nobody else is going to notice. It's, so much of the time I'm my own worst critic, and people look at things I've done and they're like astounded, and I'm like, thanks, but I don't think I'm doing anything extraordinary. These are all things that I believe that with a little bit of time, anyone who has the desire can do. Just a matter of showing. I actually, for a group of people, did a hands-on clinic in my basement in one of my previous houses where they came over and we worked on models, and I showed them how I did this stuff. So it's out there, and it's not outrageous. How am I feeling about this? But you get some of the browns, you get a lot of the light. Again, I think I'm going to come back, this time I'm going to come back, I think, with the light alcohol ink solution. Just, again, blend it a little bit more. These floors, I don't believe these floors would have been painted. Oh, that's another thing I've been thinking about too. I'll get to that in a second. I imagine these decks would have been raw wood and just weathered. Unlike a house porch. See, one of the things is, I don't know if you can see that, but I got some of the paint down in the gap between them. I don't like when that happens. So, let's see, get one of my sophisticated tools here. Hopefully I got a toothpick someplace up there. Toothpick handy. And I'm just gonna drag that right out of there. So, one of the other things is that kind of come up with a decision on what color I'm going to paint the depot too. All right, I think I'm done painting. You need to know when to stop. Know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and I think right now I'm at the time to hold off and be satisfied. Although, like I said, I am gonna use the light alcohol and ink just to get a final blending in there, so that that white's not quite, that white gray is not quite so stark. I'm just feeling a little bit overwhelmed with that at the moment. But I got to decide on what color I'm going to paint the depot. And still not 100% sure on that. So many structures in the time period that I model, which is the 20s and 30s. Mine is my modeling interest runs towards early Depression era, so late 20s, early 30s. And I model in northern Michigan again, and it's a transition era in that area of Michigan where it's transitioning from being a heavily lumber-oriented economy into an agricultural economy. So there's still some pulpwood, there's still some hardwood harvesting, but there's also the beginning of a agricultural economy up there. And it's funny because the agricultural economy up there is related to trees. It's where I model is Leelanau Peninsula, and it's in the northern part of southern Michigan. It's called, everybody points to their hands when they show Michigan, and Leelanau Peninsula is the little finger. So it's on Lake Michigan. There we go. And it's like Traverse City is the big city there, big city, 50,000, and cherries and fruit is the big crop. So, but anyways, getting back to the depot, what color I want to paint it. I'm pretty happy with how that came out now. That deck's looking pretty good. I'm thinking red with white trim, but I'm also potentially could go with the green and gray for the depot. If you have thoughts on that, leave a comment for me on the video. I'm open to suggestions. The next time, what we're going to do is work on the roof, and these are the two roof pieces, and they got primed already, obviously, from our first video here. And I think I'm going to do a green roof. So we're going to see how we can do with that. You know, the nice thing about this stuff, if you don't like how it comes out, just prime it again and go back to it. It's actually the paints, because they're acrylics, come off pretty easy with alcohol. So I'm thinking a greenish slate roof is going to look pretty good on it. And that's kind of why I like the red, because I think the red with the green roof will look pretty interesting. And we'll show you how we do the roof the next time. So appreciate you guys watching. Again, if you have some thoughts on the color for the depot, go ahead and give me a shout out what you think, and have some input on it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks everybody.